Welcome to the Random Encounter Show. I'm Deathstalker 5, coming in for a very special episode. Why is it special? Give me 1 second. First, have something to drink, come sit at the table, let's have a script-free, open dialogue, no teleprompter discussion, because we're going to be taking a look at and having an in-depth talk about the Imagine role-playing system. Definitely sort of an off-the-beaten-path tabletop RPG. So, what makes it so special? Number one, if you're part of the Random Encounter Army, you're a subscriber of the show, you're a member, or you just follow us as we go, you probably realize that I enjoy a lot of off-the-beaten-path role-playing games. I dare say obscure in some ways. Definitely obscure compared to the mainstream 5e Pathfinder kind of content around here. I like to get out and hunt down games that are more hobby-centric, more detailed, and have things that I'm looking for my solo gaming hobby. Now, if you're like me and that's something that you do, there's a lot of the hunt involved, hunting down these games. And oftentimes you'll get a game that's off the beaten path or a little bit obscure or whatever. And while it may have some interesting bits, it may have some interested pieces, as a whole, it just falls flat. You know, for whatever reason, it just doesn't have what you're looking for. That happens a lot. But every once in a while, you come across what I call a hidden gem. That you find a game and it's not only the type of game that you like, but it draws you in. It captivates you. It gives you some new ways of looking at something. And Imagine has definitely done that. Yeah? Another thing that's sort of special, just as me as a YouTuber, is that it's a rare chance I have to bring something that's never been covered on YouTube before, a first video. Often that revolves around new games coming out, at least in my experience. This is one that I never thought would happen. You know, that we have a game that's been around according to its own history since 1986. It was first published in 1997 and has been continually supported since then. So, having the chance to make the first content or video on YouTube of an almost 30-year-old role-playing game, that is a very rare chance. That's why we're going to approach it the way we're going to approach it. So what are we going to do? We're going to give an in-depth first impressions. Yeah, we're not calling this a review because it's not a review. I see too many yahoos here on YouTube that will just buy, they get a game in, they read a little bit of it, and they're throwing out reviews on their videos. They even come back sometimes and say that they actually played the games that they reviewed and they ended up not liking them. Yeah, I'm not doing that here. I've only had these books for a couple of days, less than a week. There's a lot to them. I've been reading them as much as possible and studying them as much as possible, but I have not had a chance to sit down and play, so I can only give you my impressions of this role-playing game as I see them so far. Now, we're going to actually open the books and sort of dig in and go in depth and talk about things. But before we do that, I said let's talk about Imagine just sort of in general. That way you can see if you want to take the full ride of the video. When it comes to Imagine, obviously this is a pretty deep game. I've got 6 core rule books here. According to Michael Tenery, who is the main man behind Imagine, this isn't all that we're getting. There's 2 more books on that being worked on right now. So just keep that in mind though. When it comes to talking about a game though, normally we start off with some comparisons or something. This game is very unique, so I really don't have anything to directly compare it to. It's not really a clone or a copy of any other game. But there are some games that as I was reading and looking at the rules and the mechanics and such, that I saw some similarities to. Yeah? One of those games being first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Another one being Rolemaster Standard or third edition. And the last one being RuneQuest Deluxe or third edition. Yeah? Now don't take that the wrong way. This game is like none of these games on their own, and it's not like all three of these games combined. But just for the record's sake, I will say that, hey, you know, having something that's similar or reminds me of these three games is a big deal, because if Deathstalker 5 ever put together some list of his favorite, his greatest tabletop RPGs of all time, all three of these would definitely make the list. Rolemaster Standard probably being number one on the list. Yeah? Who knows? Time may change things. But definitely not bad games whatsoever to have similarities with. Let's go just from the top of things that I've seen in here I really like, just in a general sense. The first thing is that with character creation, this game sort of, when you first look at it, you'll think it's a class and level system. Yeah, that's reasonable. But it turns out that there's a lot of freedom in character creation and character progression. I really like that for my solo games. When it comes to character creation, I like that there's no arbitrary or mostly for flavor kind of things that you roll up for your character. That happens so often in RPGs. This game, the mechanics of the game, they take a totality of the character. Yes, their attributes. Yes, their characteristics. But it also takes in their height, their frame, their weight, everything, the race and class. Everything about your character goes directly into the mechanics of the game. There's nothing here that feels arbitrary. Even most games, you know, you could even think that alignment would seem arbitrary. Not so in this game. It has very important parts, especially dealing with magic. What else do I really like about this game? The classes or professions or whatever you want to call them all feel very distinct from one another, and they play distinctly. You know, you don't have a group of magic users that are just the same thing with different spell lists. You know, you have a mage here who's your typical magic caster and such things. You have an alchemist here. He doesn't even cast magic, really. The alchemist is making potions and magical items and such. So the approach to play for each of the classes is oftentimes very distinct on their own. I like that. Especially, it's a pet peeve of mine, that the priest or cleric is not just another type of magic user. It's gotten to the point, especially from 3rd edition D&D to 5th edition D&D, that is the case, to the point where they even share the same spell list. Yeah, that's just a pet peeve of mine. Some other features of this game: the combat looks like it is screaming, guys. I think I don't know. The combat is what's really drawn me here. This is a big feature. In most games, combat is on some level, if not a major level, abstracted. You know, take D&D for example. You're rolling dice, and it's an abstracted that this is the damage done in the round from swinging, swords and such. There's no direct, simulation of combat. To me, oftentimes that can start feeling like bags of hit points throwing dice at each other, and other games where it's more abstracted. Even in Rolemaster, compared to this, it's somewhat abstracted. This is the first time I've seen the level of realism simulation done for combat. We're talking blow by blow, second by second combat. Your opponent's raising a two-handed great axe to strike you. While he's doing that, you're lifting your shield to block that blow and aiming your shot at his midsection. While he's got his arm raised, and it would be hard to parry the blow. But yeah, blow by blow, block by parry, just real deep combat. And I absolutely am thrilled by reading this. Even if I never ended up using this rule set, I think I would still pull quite a bit from the combat section to use for other games. The magic system. Overall, it's very robust. It offers a lot of distinct classes, like I said. And I like that it's, like the spells. Sort of like Rolemaster. That your aura powers your spells. We'll get into what the aura is and stuff in a second. But that powers your spells. It allows you to cast them, but the spells are all variable. So you can put more power into them to give them more range, to give them more damage, to give them more healing effects, to have a bigger area of effect, to have them make them longer duration, to target more individuals, etc. I love that magic is scalable like that. I love that it got away from the whole memorization aspect of it that was present in older RPGs. Instead, here, like I said, you have your aura that really helps you control magic. Everything here is on a skill system, much like RuneQuest, a percentile skill system, though it's handled a little bit differently. But overall, character creation and progression, amazing. Combat, screaming. Magic, amazing. The Game Master material out of the Master's Manual and the other books is some of the best I've read. So all the way around, like I said, this game has really drawn me in. Let's talk about a few things that maybe would turn other people away from this game. First off, we've got these 6 core rule books here. Definitely not a rules-like game in any sense of the word. This is a very detailed game. It falls in the simulation realism school of role-playing games. So with these type games, there's a lot of mental involvement. There's a lot of mental effort. You're going to be doing a lot of reading and a lot of memorizing things. So for those who struggle with reading, maybe reading comprehension, higher vocabulary than you'll typically see in role-playing games, that might be something that turns you off. As far as the math goes, again, most all role-playing games out there, especially nowadays, they center around basic addition and subtraction of single-digit, maybe two-digit numbers. Not the case with Imagine. You're going to need to know PEMDAS, are the order of operations. You're going to be working oftentimes with larger numbers. Nothing extreme, but sometimes even 3-digit numbers. You're going to need, there's also multiplication, division, working with fractions and decimals, averaging results, a few basic formulas for, sort of basic algebraic formulas with variables to figure out outcomes and resolution to conflict. So yeah, if you're not happy with math beyond simple adding and subtraction stuff, this game probably wouldn't appeal to you so much. One last thing that's questionable here. This question applies to all games of this sort, the really detailed games. Is that because of the level of mental involvement that goes into these? The memorization, the reading, the math, etc. It asks a lot more. It asks a lot more from the gamers who play them than, say, D&D or Tunnels and Trolls or something. It also, in ways, will slow down your game. Not drastically, especially once you get used to the system, but it's still going to slow down while you compute some calculations and such. And the question is, and this is what makes or breaks these detailed games, is that extra effort and slowing down worth it? What's the reward? If if I pick up a very detailed system that has a lot of heavy reading and memorization and slow down and such on the table, and I play the game, but my feedback from the game is no more than I'm getting from, say, Dungeons and Dragons or something, that I roll some dice, do some calculations, and it's just a pass or fail. Those games don't do it for me. Yeah, because I could play D&D for the same level of detail in the end. Conversely, though, with these detailed games, if you go through the motions and you get back a deeper, more detailed game as a result of playing, it's more than worth the effort. Yeah, it's more than worth putting in the time, especially for solo play. We'll get into that on another video. So yeah, that's just sort of some generalities about Imagine. I said the best thing we can do to really talk about this is I'll get behind the camera, we'll get this book open, and we will stroll through it and talk about the various parts and pieces and things and what I think of them. Okay, starting out with the player's guide. Very handsome front cover of the book. Same can be said about the back cover. I really like the goblins coming out of the woods entering combat. Let's talk about what the book includes. Now, this is the like I said, it's the player's book. So this is all the base game core rules that players will need for the Imagine role-playing system. It includes 12 attributes, 18 races, 26 classes, over 340 skills, more than 450 spells and invocations, over 150 different weapons and armor, more than 500 items of equipment. What I wanted to say about the book before we start, and you'll see as we go, because we're going to skim through this as quickly as possible, just showing you some of the major points. But the book as a whole, the artwork ranges from good to very good to excellent. I absolutely love the artwork in the book. The layout and organization of the book is top notch. We will show you some examples as we get in. I love the introduction material included here. It starts off with player creation. Okay, we'll get past the introduction to role-playing. With player creation, you get a full layout broke down into 11 steps of creating a full character ready to play. I love this breakdown, and I think this is an absolute essential addition to a game like this because player creation can be so involved. For those who aren't used to more detailed systems like these, they can definitely look very daunting at first. Yeah? So, but yeah, it does a fantastic job of explaining everything you're going to need. It said you had 12 attributes. Yes, and is the artwork just not screaming? Yeah, I love this line drawing style black and white fantasy art. I really do. But you roll your 12 attributes up. You're going to be using D4. You'll see lots of these tables. These tables are vitally important to this game because that's where the base information you're going to need anytime you see one of these is going to be included. There's lots of tables in this book. I really like that the tables are well organized and well laid out. Most things have separate tables like skills, magic, etc. that you'll get sort of the same tables over and over, but they're arranged differently based on what you're looking for. So we will shoot through here. Let's just take a look at some of the basic attribute tables here. You're going to roll up, of course, your attribute rating, with your D4 dice, depending on how many that you want. Pay attention over here. This game offers 4 scales of play. When I say scales of play, we're talking normal, adventurer, heroic, and legendary. This, depending on how powerful of a game you want to create, this allows you to customize your beginning characters according to that power level. Over here to the attributes, one thing that I demand out of my role-playing games, especially for solo, is to have a sort of universal mechanic behind that to resolve anything that is questionable with dice, even if there's not a specific rule to do so. That normally comes in the form of a attribute check or an attribute save. As you can see here, we have attribute saves. Simple percentile system. You'll take your percentage from whatever score you have in that attribute, add or subtract modifiers, and roll against a percentage, much like you would in RuneQuest. You'll get plenty of other modifiers here. Remember how we said that the totality of a character is really taken into effect for everything in the game mechanically. So you'll see lots of these for each of the attributes. They all have different parts of the game that they affect. Turn it over here, we get into the attribute characteristics. What that means, this is a racial endurance modifier. What the attribute characteristics, the 12 attributes are divided by 3 and you get 4 categories: endurance, perception, affinity, and fortune. These 4 categories are used in a general sense for your character on some specific roles and such. Endurance, you could think of that as your health, your well-being, how easily you can survive hardships and conflicts and such. Perception is just that, your awareness. Affinity is how others see you, their first impressions. Do you give them a good feeling, etc. Fortune is just pure blind luck. You know, how lucky is your character? If you had something where you just needed an unlucky character, everybody could use fortune. Whoever failed it by the most or whatever is the unlucky one, or if you need a lucky one, you could do it the opposite. Getting into the races, all the information you're going to need about the races is spelled out. Let's just flip through here. We got humans, civilized and barbaric. Elves, high, gray, wood, and dark. Dwarves, civilized and mountain. And dark. Midfolk, these are your hobbits. These are your halflings. You got town, forest, river. You have a species or a race known as avians. Mountain and forest. These are mammalian flyers. Sort of flying monkeys, if you will. I found them very interesting. It's where this game, especially the core book itself, sort of sticks to classic fantasy. They did throw some odd layers out there for you to explore. Then we have a goblin, an ogre, centaur, and saurian. Over here we have tables. Now all the information on these tables, you can see that they were brought down here. You also on these tables here, you had some racial skills, your attributes adjustments, resistance adjustments, aging tables, special attacks, etc. Most of all that information is brought to these tables here, where you can see how to do your attribute modifiers, the maximum table for attributes for each race. We get into how to have mixed race characters. I love when role-playing games have these comparison charts to see the sizes of the different races compared to one another. Make sure, even though this has a lot of classic fantasy involved with it, make sure you read the actual race that you choose or you want to understand, because like right here is a goblin. It's no longer a short humanoid. This is a large, almost orc-like goblin. So yeah, it behooves you to read and understand the races of each character and not just make assumptions about it. We'll move through here. Here's where you're going to get all of the information for moving, jumping, etc. Your endurance for running long distances, all your basically your movement stuff. And that's used in game, not just for combat, but also traveling from place to place, etc. Easy stuff. Explanations and mechanics for things like special sights and such. And I really like here they list examples of what it's like to have normal sight, exceptional sight, far sight, etc. You get some flying moves, some encumbrance rules, etc. Over here we get into alignments. Now the alignment section are the alignments in total. They sort of remind me of first edition AD&D a little bit in ways, but they are included in the mechanics of the game much more than in any edition of Dungeons and Dragons I've seen. Now they're pretty well explained. One of the neat things over here is whatever alignment you are determines your aura color. Yeah? Aura is one of the attributes you rolled up, and it describes sort of your magical abilities and such, sort of your natural talent at them. And some of the alignments are active, some are passive, etc. So make sure that if you're going to pick up this system that you read and understand the different alignments and how to use them and how they affect the game. Because even if you're not a magic caster, your aura is still going to determine things about your character, such as your resistance to magic, your resistance to mentalism, even down to some magic items and such that you can't use because of your alignment aura color. So yeah, then we get into classes. We're going to shoot through here as quick as we can. One thing, let's go over here and talk about this just for a second. The character experience. It's sort of like a class and level system. As you can see over here, there's a table. It's a universal table for all characters. You have something called a title. You have something called a goal. You could think of the goals being more sort of like levels in ways. Your titles actually apply to whatever profession or class you are in. In this game, you don't really level up your characters so much as progress them in their career to further titles in their career. Hopefully that makes sense. But when it comes to experience, I really love what they've done here. You have 4 primary classes here. Each one obtains experience differently. Mages earn experience through the acquisition of spells and specialized magic items. Priests through conflict resolution and healing. Warriors through combat and conflict resolution. And rogues through acquisition of treasure and resolution of situations in wily and clever ways. Now I absolutely love that, because in essence, whatever class you choose for your character and how you're going to play your character, the game sort of forces you into really playing that archetype. You know, it's more realistic than everybody just gets a shared experience from killing monsters and finding treasure kind of thing. So yeah, now when it comes to classes, they remind me a heck of a lot of AD&D First Edition. We'll turn over here. And we'll just take a look. We have a warrior class. Now when it comes to the classes, there are attribute requirements. For example, the warrior is one of the easiest ones to match a character with. Agility 13, strength 13. That's not very high requirements. But there's also going to be alignment restrictions. There's also going to be racial restrictions on some of the classes. Taking a look at the class, you get a nice breakdown of any special modifiers they receive. Social skills, some to choose from when you're starting. Now the social skills make up a large portion of the skills. Skills are broke down in various ways, and we'll see them later and talk about them more specifically. But this is one of the ways in which you have a lot of character freedom in developing your character. You have something called core skills. These are the skills that characters of the specific class must take and must train in at some point. You get your weapons and armor usable. You get your goal and title advancement. Some will have a goal advancement, some will have none. Like for example here for title advancement. and it tells you what you get for meeting each goal. Down here, you're going to get a list of class skills. The bold skills will be core skills, so you must take them on to progress to the next title anytime you come across. But in each title, you'll have a list of various skills belonging to that class in which to select from to flesh out your character. We'll get to it when we get to skills, but don't think of this like D&D where you are leveling up or getting these titles and you're getting these skills as you go. No, in fact, when you start your character out, they're pretty much, all of them are familiar with their entire list of skills. So we'll talk about that, but this is the level in which you can take them on as an acquired skill and start leveling the skills by adding skill points to them. Down here you get the attack skill. Obviously the warrior has great attack skills. We'll look at that in combat because this is really interesting. Over here we get we got the warrior. It's a primary class. We get its subclasses: a bard, duelist, knight, dark knight, ranger. We get into rogues as a primary class. We have an acrobat subclass, assassin, bandit, buccaneer, and minstrel. Then we get into our priest, and then the priest subclass. We have a priest and a dark priest. Both of these are primary. Obviously, alignment's going to come into effect here, and also how these are played and what they are do. They're sort of two sides to the same coin. One being a light side, one being a dark. One being sort of order and good, the other side being evil and chaos. I'm sure you understand. We have our druid and monk, a seer, a shaman. We get to our mage primary class. This is our magic users. Mage subclasses over here. You have an alchemist. You have the mentalist and the sage. A trickster, which is sort of a rogue slash magic user. Interesting enough. You get your white witch, your gray witch, and your black witch. The witches are interesting. You could think of your mages and your alchemists and your sages as sort of being trained people in the world of magic. The sage really isn't so magical. It has some access to magic. That's more of a scholar type character. The alchemist, it has access to magic, but it creates potions and magical items and such through its magic. When it comes to the witches, though, these are sort of your countryside magicians, basically. Obviously, like the priest, there is a white and a dark or a black and also a gray witch, which sort of strides to middle. Now, the witches, they are sort of eclectic. You know, they work everything from casting spells to using herbal knowledge to making potions, etc. But at later levels, they also start getting into the divine magic, or what the priests and stuff would be able to use, but differently than priests and such. So this stuff's worth reading. It's worth checking out. But I absolutely love just how distinct each class is, how distinct each class plays, and the approach to play, and how the experience level keeps players sort of oriented in how they're going to approach playing these classes. We're going to get into skills. Skills are broken down into 4 different categories. You have class skills, you have racial skills, you have social skills, and you have common skills. When it comes to skills, obviously class skills are the abilities which you get from your class. Racial skills are going to be those skills and abilities that you get from being born of that race. Social skills, these are more like professions that people would have. Baking, armoring, blacksmithing, just all kinds of dancing, etc. There's a lot of these, and these also help flesh out each character. Now, for these skills, Like we said with class skill, that when you start playing, it's made, and we'll get it. I think it's over here. We'll take a look at it. But once you start playing in your class, uh, it sort of makes the assumption, or doesn't make the assumption, but for most all of your skills, you're familiar with them. You know, I really like this, that as you're playing and gaining experience, all of a sudden you just don't know, and you know, all of a sudden, like in D&D, for example, you get a new level, and all of a sudden a ranger knows how to track and also now knows how to call animals somehow, just out of the blue. No, for class skills here, as your character begins, for most all of them, you don't have to take them on as an acquired skill, that you can start using them, and you use them as you would common skills. Therefore, you wouldn't get the bonuses and you wouldn't be able to level them up until you get to the title in which you can start doing that. Same with racial skills and social skills. Now, when it comes to producing the chances for, you know, your skill success, like if you want to use a skill, it gets sort of wonky here. Well, it gets sort of wonky at first, but the more I study this game and the more I look at it, the more I understand why they've done it this way. But here is your formulas for how to roll up and see if you're successful using a skill. You've got to establish a base chance, which is your combined attributes per the skill. We'll see this in the skill. Minus the skill rating times 5%. You're going to get your ability bonus. So your starting bonus with a skill, we'll get into what the starting bonus is, plus modifiers plus skill points. And then your total skill chance is base chance plus ability bonus will give you a percentage in which you will have to roll under or equal to. And that's pretty much the same for class, racial, and social. With common skills, these all have a built-in rating, such as this table here is illustrating. So you won't have to get your starting bonus and modifiers and all that. So yeah, it's definitely not that difficult. At first it seems wonky, but what they're doing is they're bringing, like we talked about, the totality of the character into just about everything that you would roll on this game. So skills, combat, etc. I really like this. I dig it. We'll have to get it on the table, and time will tell how much I like this. Now, there's a good chance that I may convert this over to just the easier to use percentage system, but I definitely want to try it this way first because I like what I'm seeing. When it comes to learning skills and such, first off with your character, it looks very class and level system. But once you get over here into the skill section, you'll see that you're able to modify your skills in big ways, such as sacrificing skill slots for one type to another, transferring skills, improving, obtaining class skills outside of the class, etc. So it covers the whole gamut of that. When it comes to learning skills and learning things in this game, they don't just come out of nowhere. Yeah, so if you're going to learn something that your character, maybe they're at Title 2 or something, and you want to try to learn a new skill and you want to spend those skill points, what you'll have to do is you'll actually have to find a way to learn that skill. We should see that here shortly in 1 second. We'll get past these lists. Actually, I think it's toward the end, so let me skip ahead just 1 second, then we'll come back to that. Yes, here's learning skills and improving the skills. To learn a skill, you're self-taught with a book, with a library, by a teacher with instruction skill, and in previous attempts. What you'll have to do is, if you're teaching yourself, for example, self-taught, it's going to require a lot more effort and a lot more time to learn the class skill or any skill that you're going to learn. A book makes it easier. A library makes it easier. A teacher makes it much easier. So it's realistic in a way of that skills just don't pop up out of the blue, that you just don't learn a new skill because you leveled. Yeah? Now, when we get to these skills, I wanted to take a look at a few of them. Now, here's the example when I said they organized the tables very well. You get all of the skills organized in various ways. Sometimes by class skills, sometimes by attributes, etc. So then you get tables that have the bare bone information of the skills. These are class and racial skills. And it tells you pretty much everything you're going to need to know mechanically. But as we move over, we get a section on combat skills. Now this lays out exactly how this skill is used and gives you a lot of detail, sometimes examples even, and special notes on different usages of the skill, etc. You'll also get your starting bonus. When you pick up a skill for the first time, you're going to get a number of dice to roll, and it's going to give you your base percentage. Such as brace here, start bonus is 4d6 equals the percent. So you'd roll 4 6-sided dice, and that would be your starting percent. Anything that you do beyond that will go into skill points. So yeah, it looks daunting, but it's really not. So now we can get past all of our skills. As you can see, they're broke down into various categories. They take up a large portion of the book, of course. We get into what I think is the most exciting part in the game, at least to me, and that is combat. Hey, look, we got a Gene Simmons fan over here, huh? It's a groupie from Kiss. I can't help it. What do you want? Anyways, you start off with a combat overview. Siding, surprise, initiative, the combat round, resolution. Essentially, siding. This game, if you can't see or sense your opponent, you can't get ready to fight them because you don't know something's coming, basically. Surprise is just like other role-playing games that if you can't see them coming, they're definitely going to surprise you. Initiative, fairly easy to establish initiative. A D10 roll minus your agility modifier. Then you get into the combat round. This game uses 10-second long combat rounds. But do not make any assumptions you have an idea what that means just yet. Then you get into resolution, which you will take a look at who got injured, how they got injured, see who's alive, see who got their head cut off, see who got some dismemberments, their ribs broke, their armor busted, their weapon dropped, etc. Also to note, in the combat section, the gray boxes have more detailed rules that you can use as optional rules. This is definitely a scalable game. We'll see that when we talk about the master manual here in a little bit. So we're going to, this is your surprise modifiers, initiative modifiers. Let's move over. When it comes to combat itself, you can do pretty much anything you can imagine with your character, and they have rules for all of it. One of the things you can do is decide that when you're engaging an enemy, an opponent or opponents, what is your stance or what is your drive into this? You have sort of a standard engagement, you have a furious attack, you have charging, diving, combat maneuvering, desperate defense, move through, broke down. All these are broke down into different ways. Basically think of them as stances. If you went on the furious offense, you're going to get a lot of bonuses to your offense, but your defense is going to suffer. Being standard is you're ready for both offense and defense. So yeah, that's easy. It's easy enough to figure this stuff out. Then we get into attacking and defending, weapon damage, etc. Now, remember when we talked about the attack skills when we showed the warrior class? These are representations of the class skills. They look like bullseyes. They sort of are, but they're not. Whatever skill you use for attack, you will use the appropriate template in which to swing or strike. For example, if we took the expert here, we have 3 rings. In the center ring, we have 11 to 20. Combat's done with a D20. So 11 through 20 to attack, that would be a direct hit. We have a middle ring here in the sort of darker gray. we have a 9, we have a 7, 8, 9, 10 in the 4 cardinal directions. On the outer rings, we have 1 through 6, which represent misses. These are important to understand because, like I said, they're not really bullseye. In this game, you have 10-second rounds. We'll see more about that here shortly. But as you swing your weapons, you're going to swing them at parts of the body on your opponents. So you may strike at their legs, their heads, etc. Now down here you will see something called shots. These would be shots that would be difficult if the game master decided they were difficult in any kind of way, and you get your called shot table down here. For example, the example here is they wanted to shove a broadsword through the faceplate of an opponent's great helm. That would definitely be a difficult thing to do. But otherwise, you call out a general body area in which you're going to strike your opponent, and then you're going to use these templates to overlay on those bodies, at least mentally. Now you could definitely keep the book open and use the templates. Now depending on what type of weapon you're using and how you're using it, the template's going to give you a lot of different information. Such as this, let's see. Such as if we were swinging for the neck region here. You get 2 templates. The one on the right is a thrusting template. So if you was to roll dead center, it's a hit to the neck. If you were to roll in the gray area, if you rolled a number that was to the south or below, it would hit in the mid-torso. If you rolled above, it would hit the head, but it would miss on either of the sides. Obviously, there's no body parts there to hit. If you were swinging, for example, from the right, that a direct center hit would hit the neck with the swing. If you went to either side, it would hit the neck because you're swinging horizontally. If you went a little bit above, you would chop the head. If you went down below, it would actually enter the upper torso region or the shoulders. Same thing if you were swinging downward. A direct hit's going to be on the head. To the sides are going to be on the shoulder. Up and down would still be on the head, neck region. So these templates, you have to look at this, you have to study this and think about it. But it makes some phenomenal, very detailed combat in this simulation style combat. We'll see here in a minute. Well, I think I'll go ahead and show you, but each and every body type in the game is broken down by body regions. So let's flip over to some character sheets over here. So we have sort of a humanoid avian sheet. Hey, there's one of my favorite pieces of game art ever I found in this book. Look, it's ogres, and they're saying a blessing over a halfling tied to the table. I absolutely love it. Yes, please. But anyways, back to these templates. There's sort of your humanoid, also avian, because there's the wings included. And there's the breakdown of the table. Here's a saurian and a centaur. So each of the body types for character players and such, they're broken down. Now, when you take your endurance, you're actually going to apply it to each body segment, depending on what character and race and such you are. We'll see that more in a second, but each little body segment, as they take damage, things happen to them. Severed limbs, decapitations, broken arms, broke legs, pierced chest. I don't know, it's great. When it comes to combat itself, we talked about the 10-second round. You roll initiative. So once you roll initiative, your initiative tells you where in that 10-second round you're going to begin play and who's going to begin first. Yeah? The 10-second round is broke down second by second. So the first second, the second second, the third second, the fourth second, the fifth second, etc. As your character does things once they're activated in combat and they start doing things, they're going to announce what they're doing, and you're going to have based on your weapon speed or your character speed, etc., it's going to tell you how many seconds it takes to do that thing, or for example, how much you can move in the first second, or in 1 second, I should say, etc. When it comes to movement, an interesting thing that you can't be at a standstill and start running. The first second has to be spent walking, the second jogging, the third second running, and then you can't suddenly stop either. So you have to slow down before reaching your opponent unless you want to crash into them or crash into something else. But for each blow, each swing of the weapon, each parry, everything going on here, you're going to get it broke down to how many seconds it's going to take it. You can also make them quick attacks and quick parries, for example. It doesn't give you as much bonus, and it doesn't give you as good chance to block or hit, but it allows you to get it in at half the speed. So you'd make a sacrifice. So yeah, it's combat that's very realistic. It's full of actions and reactions, and I'm absolutely in love with this. And it's very detailed here. Size modifications. Bigger guys hit smaller guys harder. So it's that kind of stuff. You get offhand weapons. Everything you can pretty much imagine for standard combat in a very detailed way is going to be present here. Lots of weapons, both of melee and thrown and ranged. Lots of different modifiers for using your weapons in different ways, such as bracing weapons, such as using them two-handed, unconventional attacks, having different weapon types. That's a thing I really like that comes over from Rolemaster. You have smashing, crushing weapons. You have piercing weapons. You have slashing weapons, etc. I really like that. And the weapons all do different types of damage. So if you hit somebody in the arm with a crushing weapon, it's probably going to break the bone in their arm wherever you strike and bruise it. But if you hit it with the same force with a bladed slashing weapon, it's going to either open them up with a very deep wound or possibly just take the arm completely off at the elbow. Yeah? So yeah, this covers the range. But I'm absolutely in love with this combat system, guys. I'm absolutely in love with it. And it only gets better as you get into the other books. I hate to tell you. So here you have the hand-to-hand combat. Just as detailed as the weapon combat. Yeah, all kinds of throws, slams, holds, pins, ear rips, eye gouges, etc. You get brawling with all sorts of random, just sort of melee weapons involved. I'm telling you, here's your different types of weapon: cutting and thrusting, piercing, smashing, crushing, constricting. Then you get into armor. Now, the one thing that's neat about armor is different armors react to different types of damage differently. Leather armor may protect you pretty well from a crushing or a smashing blow. But a piercing blow, a thrust with a rapier or an arrow to the chest or something, it's going to just slice through that leather and hit you. I like the level of realism here. In the optional rules, you get damage to your armor and weapons as you parry and strike and such. With the armor itself, it's a very comprehensive, realistic system. Guys, when I was a teenager, I did a lot of time messing with the SCA and combat, Society for Creative Anachronism. I've still got my plate mail set of armor and a leather set of armor in the attic. So I love attention to detail with the armor, especially layering armor up. You can layer your armor up to where you want it. Again, the armor is only going to cover whatever body parts you put armor on. So it's something to think about in combat if you're facing an opponent that for some reason they don't have shoulder pauldrons or something. Those are obvious targets. They don't have armor there. We even get a nice breakdown of armor, how it fits, the different types, etc. What parts of the body do different armor bits cover for those who are unfamiliar with traditional Western, Eastern European armor of the medieval feudal era? Here we get those body hit charts. I guess I didn't have to turn over to the character sheet. I forgot they put them over here. We get damage effects to the body. Depending on how severe blows are, your enemy or you may go into shock. You may get wounds and bleed. They've got blows to all the different areas of the body, and you would just have to think, how would that type of damage affect the body? So, but it gets really detailed. Like, you thrust somebody with a weapon, a sword or a spear, and it gets stuck in the opponent. You know, you have to spend some time and some strength saving throws to pull that weapon out. And as it come out, it does some more damage, yeah? But it may be better to not worry about that, because you can do some twisting and pushing of the weapon while it's still in them to cause even further damage. Sorry. I absolutely love the level of detail here. Removing bolts and arrows, you better be careful. That can hurt. And the blood can pour everywhere. Then you get into sort of powerful blows. Some cause sort of knockout conditions. Some knock the opponent back. Some knock them down to the ground. Some knock them out. They call it fatigue, but basically knocking them unconscious. You get non-weapon damage effects, exposure, fire, and heat. So this is what you would see in the environment or from magic use, acid, etc. Then you get into your healing, and it covers recovering from shock, blood loss, wounds, how to stop them, etc. Yeah, all going for a level of simulation and realism here. Yeah, so I'm really excited about combat. And I love, again, they've put tons of examples in this book, and they're really well written examples. So it shows you how to put it all together step by step. Then you get a complete layout of fighting here between two opposing sides. And it helps you understand exactly, round by round, how this detailed combat should run and can run. We get into other types of combat as well, such as mental combat. You get into your equipment. That's going to be self-explanatory. Quite a bit of equipment to use for whatever you may need. You get in your armors, you get in your weapons. Yes. When it comes to magic, magic is very robust. You have scroll knowledge. Okay, if you want spells in this game, you start off with however your game master wants to start you off. It could be randomized, or they could give you a list of so many spells to start off with. You're going to use your learning skills, specifically scroll knowledge. If you want further spells, you can either read them off of a scroll and cast at the same time, or you can learn them from scrolls and books, etc. By learning those spells, you actually advance your magician of whatever type forward in its titles in its class. Now, your aura, which is one of your attributes, that fuels your magic use. So when it comes to magic resistance, your aura, you have an auric field. This explains it. You have aura control. And the aura control is how much power are you going to put in a specific spell. We talked about that spells are scalable. You have an aura pool. That's how many spells or how powerful spells you can cast before rest, in between rest and such. So think of it as like mana in other games. So yeah, there's all kinds of other uses and such. Now, one thing about this is there's a lot of magical talents. Some of those magical talents are very much spell-like in different ways, but what they represent are innate abilities as well as talents people pick up, the skill list, the talents they pick up and such, where they can do something magical without casting a spell. So yeah, that's why the classes can feel so distinct from one another, just because of how they utilize magic in the game. Also, various rituals and such. Like I said, this is very robust. If we ever come back and do a deep delve of this, it would require a whole video to lay out magic properly, especially with the additional books. But as we scroll through here, you can see the spell list and we can talk about different spells. They got them broken down by aura levels. Aura levels is where your aura has to naturally be in order to learn and use the spell somewhat. You could still cast spells beyond your aura level, but it's going to cost you an aura big time. You know, you may even have permanent damage from doing so if things go wrong. Now, when it comes to the spell, you're going to get everything that you're going to need to know about the spell. You know, what save that it uses for the opponent, duration, 10 seconds per aura level put into it, area affected, casting time, memorization. Memorization is how long it takes to learn it from a scroll, basically. And you get a description and you get notes on powering up the spell and using it for different things. But yeah, this is a very robust magic system. We're not even going to try to cover it all. Again, the mage type magic, the spell casting, is very different than what priests do, the divine magic. From the mechanics, well, the mechanics is skill rolls, but aura and stuff really doesn't have much to do with divine magic. We'll get there in just a second. Hang on. There we go. Divine magic. Divine magic's based on piety. Yeah? A divine magic user, they have to pray to their deities or deity, and certain invocations will be granted to them in which they can use. Once they are used, they cannot be used again. Well, I mean, sometimes you may get multiple invocations of the same type or something. Bad way to explain it. But basically, what you have when you start off is what you'll have until you're able to pray and gain more invocation uses from the deity or deities. So quite different mechanically from the magic of spellcasters and such. And the divine magic spells themselves are oftentimes very different than what the spellcasters do. Priests are basically, they're blessing, they're banishing, they're healing. They're doing things depending on their alignment and what type of priest they are, you know. But if we think of it typically like our priest in our world, the supernatural abilities attributed to priests and such, consecration of objects and such things, making holy water, etc. Lots of things in here to do with the undead and such, depending on what side of the fence of divine magic you fall on under alignment. So yeah, I really like there's a very good separation between that and the different divine classes themselves. Shamans are very different from priests. Druids are different from both of those. At first I wondered why they had a shaman and a druid, for example. Then I was looking at how they're structured and what spells what prayers and such they get, and I see that the shaman is more of an animalistic, or animist, I should say, style caster, whereas the druid is something between an animist, a spell caster, and a priest. So yeah, this is all just fantastic stuff. Like I said, I'm absolutely in love with what I've seen here. I can't wait to get to play it. There's that favorite art again. But that'll be it for the player's guide. Let's take a look at a few more things before we sort of return to the table for some final talk. Okay, very briefly, we're going to talk about the Master's Manual and then a few more things. The Master's Manual, one of the best resources I've read for game mastering. Now, each of the books after the core rulebook offer players and game master material. In this book, the first thing it starts off with is extending the attributes, classes, and races beyond the 10th title from the first book. But all I wanted to do was flip around over here. We can get past that. It also offers some optional ways of creating characters, including with detailed backgrounds, Also a point buy system instead of rolling your characters. But when it comes to the races, it offers a little bit different. You got a cheetah, a cat person, dark avian, a fairy, civilized giant, gnomes, forest goblins, growls, mountain goblins, rock trolls, etc. Okay, so why is there so many goblins and trolls and all this kind of stuff? One thing about this game is they made some of the most common denizens of classic fantasy worlds into player classes and player races. But they're not necessarily only for players. There's a very easy system in this book for generating your opponents of the most common types, with averaging their statistics and adding a few modifiers in which to throw them directly into your game. More exotic things and more animalistic things are left toward, there's some in the end of this book, but they're left more toward the bestiaries we'll talk about toward the end of the video. But yeah, what the Game Master Manual does as far as these rules go, it completely details the rules. Where you get what you need for the player side over there, over here you're going to get all the rest of the details. Here's some more classes: the archer, berserker, bounty hunter, martial artist, cavalier, delver, runesmith, which is interesting because this is one of the only classes. It's a warrior subclass, but it has access to an ancient magic that predates the spell casting magic of the other classes in the use of runes, and it's one of the only classes that has anything to do with magics in which you can bring a dwarf into. You've got your healer, a wilder, and your jack of all trades. Then you get your extensions for the classes in the first player's guide. Now, one thing when we get to skills, here's something important that I thought was drastically missing based, looking at Rolemaster and RuneQuest and such. That why are the skills just basic pass and fail sort of skills? So you get a list of the same skills again in this book. There's also new skills to use that go along with the new races and classes and social skills and such. Like I said, the Monster Manual's here to flesh everything out completely. But with the skills that's already listed and continuing with the new skills, you'll see now that they have a simple failure, a critical failure, and a critical success. This is more detail into what you do how you pass or fail the specific skills now. So yeah, this is something that I absolutely love to see. It makes it where we talked about putting all the effort into the game, what are you getting back out of it? These are the type things where you know you're going to be getting a lot more back out of it compared to your D&D style systems and such. So yeah, when it comes to all aspects of the game, from equipment to magic to divine magic, etc., you're going to be getting a lot more detail in every direction. Combat as well, dueling rules in here I really like, etc. For the second half of this book is directed to game mastering itself. All aspects of game mastering, from what it is to be a game master to styles of games you can run, etc. Fantastic advice here. I put it right up there with some of the best Game Master guides I've ever written. I haven't read this as fully as I've read the Player's Guide, so I'm sure the more I read, the more I'm going to enjoy this. So we get ideas, about using skills, doing tasks, etc., and how to get resolution on those within the game at various levels. One thing this Game Master does that I absolutely love, it makes this game super hobby-centric. It breaks down the game to the bare bone mechanics, and it shows you all kinds of different ways in which to rebuild the game engine specifically to run the game that you want on the table. You don't get this kind of service anymore. This is why I'm out here digging through obscure role-playing games. This is why I'm off the beaten path. You know, these hidden gems like this, they are amazing finds. These are what I crave and what I want. So yeah, we're going to just flip through here. You get setting rules. You get some tables and stuff to help you with different things. Not a lot in the master manual. Not as many as I would actually like to see. But there are some. Mostly it's tools written out that you can use to build directly from your imagination. Okay, so yeah, I like that as well. I've got plenty of tools to use over in my library. This information will help me make it real on the table as I play. So you get your setting. You're going to get information on creating everything within a game world. From the weather patterns, to the land masses, to the architecture, to the cultures, to your NPCs and different personalities, to deities and religions, etc. It's all here. It's all very well written. Okay? There's cities and such. Let's see what we got here. Also, there's a design. Again, like I said, the game not only teaches you to play as a game master and run your game. It not only teaches you how to build your entire world and stuff, but it starts tearing down the mechanics so that you can use them as a hobby-centric sort of point. So designing your own races for the game, designing your own classes, and you get examples, you know, of things that you could add, and they show you examples of how they added them. So yeah, that's all great to have. You get equipment creation, weapons, armors, different items, etc. You get magic equipment creation, and you get quite a few examples that would serve as sort of the base magic items of a game where you wouldn't have to create a whole lot to go along with it. You get spell creation, prayer creation, etc. And like I said, they go over all the parameters of the mechanics so that you can build them. They just go directly into the game. You don't have to worry so much about balancing things or how you're going to make it work. Just follow these guidelines and it will work. Just a little bit of critical thinking and a little bit of creativity needed. But when it comes to the magic items and such, here we go. You get a nice list. These are divine magic items. Over here we get your sort of mage magic items kind of stuff. But these are good for any players, basically. So yeah, it gives you examples, but a lot of these examples are easy to throw right into the game. At the end, you're going to get your creature design, where you can design any kind of monster from your imagination. Hey, from just anything, really. I absolutely like it. It's very detailed. Probably the most detailed creature design I've ever seen in my life, provided by a role-playing game. At the end of the creature design, you get a very small bestiary in the master manual to give you examples and to give you stuff you can throw directly into your game. Now, in none of the bestiaries will you really see any of the player characters and classes that are offered. Again, those are the most common creatures, humanoids, intelligent creatures and such, you would find in most classic fantasy game worlds. There's a whole system for using all of those to make NPCs on the fly that looks pretty easy to do. So yeah, but you get a really nice selection straight out of here. We're going to look at, I think, one more thing, maybe two more things. Then we're going to go back to the table and just talk this thing out. I know we've been here long enough. We're just doing this. This is Aspects of the Wild. This was the first bestiary made for Imagine, and it takes into consideration all things on sort of the wilderness or frontier. Of course, you're going to get new races of all sorts. This is just a quick look. You're going to get new classes, new spells. You're going to get new skills to match sort of the theme. There's a beast master, etc. But what I wanted to do is sort of show you the bestiary. I really think this one's cool because they did a lot of the artwork to match traditional medieval European bestiaries, you know. So yeah, these are fantastic. It's all kind of stuff you can throw directly into your game. Lots of things to think about. These are fairly detailed entries, a lot of illustrations, a lot of things to think about. There are 3 other bestiaries other than this one. They all follow the same suit. When it comes to adventure modules, just a quick look. I have one of them, going back for some other ones. The adventure modules, I have to say, are quite different as well. This is 3 from Reston. Got some color maps and such. They give you, and I love this, they give them to you with the plastic comb or coil binding. That way you can always have them laying flat. These are quite wild. I think they're going to be fantastic for solo play. You get a background of an entire area. You could almost think this is a mini campaign setting. You get your cast of characters and such that take place. As a game player, you may want to skip most all of this stuff if you want to use it as sort of a solo module. One thing you will pay attention to is the scenario event task list. But here's the neat thing about these I've seen. I haven't read too much far into them. But from start to finish, you get these NPCs listed out, and basically you get like a play script that players talk to them, and depending on who they talk to and how they talk to them, you get the reactions and what the NPCs say and have, etc., based upon that. And the whole book is full of that, and talking to various NPCs and such can trigger different timed events and tasks within your little campaign here. So I'm going to take a look at this. I'm going to be digging in it. I'm going to try it out. But I think for solo, this might be absolutely fantastic. Anyways, let's turn the camera around. Let's get back on the table and let's have sort of some final thoughts on where we're going to go from here. Alright guys, sort of taking a deeper look than imagining I normally would for a first impression video. Taking a look at the books. If you wanted to know, I consider all 6 of these core books, but if you wanted to know maybe the first few books, if you wanted to check this game out, you would need. I would highly recommend The Player's Guide, The Master Manual. We forgot to take a look at the back of that, huh? Hello. Beautiful artwork. Same with this one. I would also recommend Aspects of a Wild, at least to get you a more fleshed out bestiary started. We'll talk about these books a little bit more in general here. Each book, as we showed with the Master Manual and Aspects of the Wild, they continue bringing more player classes, player races, skills, magic, and more detailed rules for combat, etc. to the game. Epitaph of the Fallen. Each of these have sort of a theme to them. But Epitaph of the Fallen is the next bestiary available. Show you a little bit of that artwork. I know we've got 10,000 glares going, but this is some beautiful artwork. This is your undead. This is your darkness. This is stuff that would pertain but to that realm. When it comes to the bestiary, the player characters, you've got necromancers, you've got exorcists, etc. You've got a lot of undead races. There's rules for that. If you're, no matter what character you're playing, if they get turned undead, all the way around, just a really cool supplement to the game. And like I said, with them bringing so much more to the game, these are more than supplements, at least in my opinion. These follow along, bringing more rules to the game, sort of making them core rule books. Legends of the Unknown. This brings a lot of key. This one's a thick one. This one's a thick one. This brings a lot of key rules to the game that weren't available and just about in the player's manual, our player's guide and the master manuals and such, including very detailed vehicle combat, ships, naval ships, airships, submarines, all kind of stuff. The theme of this is exploring the unknown. Going off the edge of the map where it said here there be dragons. So you've got creatures from deserts, from jungles to the oceans, etc. A lot of creatures of legend. When it comes to player skill, our player types, the races and classes. A lot of exotics are for the races are in this book that you might see in some of those foreign unknown lands. The player types are sort of the adventurers, the people that would actually go out into these lands and explore them. Also, some classes of beings that would be in those lands being explored. So yeah, very detailed treatment, a lot of stuff brought to the game, just like all the rest of the books, but a lot of new detailed information for combat, etc. Last up, we have Mysteries of the Plains. This is the last release. Just came out in 2023, I believe. I will tell you in 1 second. (2023). This is a massive expansion to the Imagine role-playing system. Again, a lot of detailed rules that haven't been seen for the main game system are included. The main theme here is planar travel, that leaving your reality and seeing other realities. This goes super exotic as far as classes and races and such goes. The creatures in this book are really wild. The magic in this book is really wild. There's going to be new ways to look at just about everything. But the Bestiary is wild. One thing I found in this book I absolutely love, by the way. Let me see if I can pull it up really quickly. It was jousting rules. Yeah, for combat. I don't know why I love stuff like jousting and archery contests and such in my role-playing games, but I absolutely do. And this looked like this looks like the best jousting system I have seen for a role-playing game. I'm a big fan of what came out for AD&D in the Dragon magazine, but this one takes it many, many steps further. So excited about that. I don't know if that even came up, where you're getting examples of the templates for horse riders and such. So yeah, very detailed jousting, but a lot of new magic, a lot of new approaches to the game itself. A whole treatment of the various dimensions you could use for your fantasy role-playing game. This is a monster of a book. We're clocking in at almost 700 pages of material. Yeah? So, like I said, the first 3 books, the Player's Guide and the Master Manual, those would be the bare minimum to get started with, but I would definitely include Aspects of the Wild or Epitaph of the Following or something, just to start getting those extra rules, those extra player classes, those extra races, and having a bestiary in which you can build upon. Like I said about the Master Manual, and I'll keep saying it, that it shows you how to take the player classes and player races for the most common types of intelligent, humanoid, if you will, or at least above animal intelligent races and such, and using classes and be able to quickly flesh your game out with those. Your elves, your dwarves, your humans, your goblins, your ogres, your trolls, etc. So, yeah. Now, my first impressions of this game is I think I'm going to absolutely love it. If I was to stop right now and never touch it again, I've came away just from reading the Player's Guide, skimming through the Master's Manual, skimming through the rest of these books. I think I've came away with a lot of useful information that I could use for just anywhere in the hobby. But needless to say, I'm captivated by this. I'm captivated by it. I can't wait to explore it. I don't know about you, but I think this is going to justify another deep delve. Yeah, I think that's the only way we're going to be able to approach talking about a game of this magnitude. I know we have a bunch to go, so that will give me time to sit down, play this game, run through it, get established with it. I got a few guys who are interested in playing it with me, T. Weston and such. They've already purchased the PDS. I think they've purchased the hardbacks. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm super excited to keep getting into this game. Like I said, this is not a game that's going to be for everyone. This is a highly involved game. It has a lot of moving parts. It takes a heck of a lot of mental investment to keep it running. Once it is running, once you do understand it, it's like second nature to you. A lot of people look at games like Rolemaster, for example. It just seems super overwhelming to them. They're not really. So we need to do a video here soon, because I've been requested to do one on how I approached super detailed games and learn them fairly quickly, and show you how they're just not so daunting. They're not just so overwhelming as they seem for those who have looked at such games and shied away from them. Anyways, I'm going to put a link below to the Imagine role-playing game. It's not available on drive-thru. It's not available on Amazon that I'm aware of, other than used copies. Probably your best bet for buying the game is going to their website. You can see the age of this game with their domain, right? Roleplaying.com, with a hyphen between role and playing. Yeah. They've been around a while. To further note, just in case anybody was wondering, I purchased this with my own money. This has all just been my original thoughts and such on the game. I have no way of even recovering any kind of money for it through an affiliate program or anything like that. I'm dedicated to bringing you my passion of the hobby. I'm dedicated to bringing you the best stuff I can find for the hobby. Yeah? So we're just going to continue that quest around here. Anyways, I'll see all of you next time here on the Random Encounter Show.
And this has been but one tale from the days of high adventure. You can join Deathstalker 5 on his quest by hitting that subscription button and joining his Random Encounter army. On the channel's About page, you will find our Facebook page and Facebook group, where you can get more directly involved with the fun. And make sure you use our affiliate links to support our show.